All right, guys. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast. And I've got a special guest here today. Can't wait to introduce him and talk with him today. This is Tim Fox, who is a performing strongman and motivational speaker from Middle Tennessee with a mission to help people discover their inner strength. For over 25 years, he served as a law enforcement officer, bringing real-life experience and resilience to his message. Today, he inspires audiences through powerful demonstrations and impactful storytelling. Tim speaks in schools with anti-bullying assemblies and in churches where he shifts the focus to the strength of God. His unique blend of strength, feats, and motivational insight leaves audiences empowered, encouraged, and ready to rise above the challenges. So, Mr. Fox, thank you for being on the show today. I'm excited to have you.
Yes, sir. I'm excited to be here.
Pretty cool that we got a strong man on here. And as you were watching, you know that I've done a little bit of professional wrestling. We both like to tell stories. So this is going to be a good day. Nice morning.
Yes. And we can get sidetracked on professional wrestling because I'm a huge fan. And I even had a cup of coffee in the business when I was a young man. I'm 46 now, but when I was a teenager, I actually trained in Shelbyville at a place called Statham Cab Company. And it was ran by Ben Mullins, and we had different people, Brickhouse Brown, Wolfie D, the Rock and Roll Express come through there. So, I mean,
nice.
It was really awesome, man. Gypsy Joe, if you've ever heard of him. I got to wrestle Gypsy Joe, who has passed away when I was a teenager. And, I got to wrestle Chris Champion, Wolfie D, Jamie Dundee. I was on the same cards as Superstar Bill Dundee. So that's a lot of the Southern brass so here in Middle Tennessee.
I love it. Yeah, we could, I'm sure we could get sidetracked with pro wrestling. It seems like every now and again I'll get a guest on the show, and it seems to just be the hot topic that we keep coming back to. But I really want to focus on you and focus on what you do. We were introduced, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was Jeremy Jackson that connected us. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And how do you know Jeremy?
I met Jeremy at the late, great Sean Stevenson speaking event. It was called 10K Speeches in Phoenix, Arizona. And we went 2 years in a row. I think it was 2017 and 2018, or it might have been 2018 and 2019.
Okay.
And it was wonderful. Sean is just amazing. If you want to see more of what Sean's about, you can go to YouTube and put in the Prison of the Mind. And it's a TED Talk. And he's at a prison. And, he just talks about the prison of our mind and taking control of your mind and your thoughts, so it's only about a 10-minute speech, but Sean is one of the best speakers that I've ever seen. My two favorite speakers of all time, besides Dennis Rogers. So I'm going to talk more about Dennis Rogers, who trained me to do the feats. So Dennis is really my favorite, but besides Dennis, strictly motivational speaking, I love Les Brown and Sean Stevenson, and I've been trained by both of them. So, those are my top two guys. I can listen to them every day. And, Sean is in heaven. Sean passed away not long after the last seminar that I went to of his, that I met Jeremy Jackson at. But Sean is just amazing. He talks about, knowing your life purpose, and his life purpose was to rid the world of insecurity. So he could put his shoulders back and take a deep breath and say, hey, I know what my life purpose is. It's to rid the world of insecurity, So it's just amazing. And he encourages all of his students to find out what their life path and their main goal is. And mine is to help people find inner strength. And I have a two-part combination of that, and that's prayer and self-care. So they just so happen to rhyme, but it's prayer and self-care. That's my tool for inner strength. So
I love it.
It's kind of a Les and Sean. So it's, it's given, honor to both of them and give them honor to my number one mentor, and that's Dennis Rogers.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. It's really cool how the power of connection brings us together. Jeremy Jackson and I work together as martial artists in the Martial Arts Industry Association. He was one of my very first clients, actually, and we worked together to help, boost up and build his school. And he's doing some great things. And then we found that we had a lot of things in common. We both like to do Spartan races. At the time, I was running a lot. not quite running as much as he probably is. But meeting him and then having him introduce me to you, and then having you talk about these amazing speakers, and of course all the pro wrestlers that you mentioned just a minute ago. Sounds like we're going to have a great conversation. So let's dive right into it. Let's get into some of these questions for you and talk about your personal story and background first. What first inspired you to become a performing strongman? How did
And
that journey begin?
yeah, it's funny because you and I have not had this conversation at all. And I did notice that you were into professional wrestling and had done a little bit, but it is pro wrestling. So my biological father was an alcoholic, and he ran off. I never met him. So he left my mom, I guess I'm a bastard, what you would call it, because they were never married. So I always joke about that because Les Brown says I'm a bastard, but I'm a happy bastard. So it's a terrible joke, but it's actually hilarious, So I didn't miss. It's not a sad story. I didn't miss anything because my grandfather came into my life, and that's my mother's father, and he signed on to be my legal guardian. Well, he loved Memphis wrestling, and that's pro wrestling from Memphis with Jerry the King Lawler,
Jerry Lawler,
Austin
baby.
Idol. Yeah, Austin Idol, Bill Dundee, all those guys, and most of the stars, including Macho Man and Hulk Hogan, went through Memphis. So and Stone Cold Steve Austin went through Memphis.
That's right.
I grew up on that storytelling, in which my business and ministry is called Strongman Storytelling. And a lot of the storytelling that I do is from pro wrestling. So you and I haven't had that conversation, but I was inspired by pro wrestlers, the modern day warrior, Kerry Von Erich. I watched World Class, and, he just had a heck of a physique, Lex Luger, like it was Sting and Luger in the NWA before it became WCW. I kind of, wanted to lift weights because of them, and also because of Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage and the Road Warriors with the spikes. And, and there's martial arts in that too, because I grew up in the 80s and we loved martial arts, and you had the Great Muta with the mist, the green mist, and doing the acrobatics and whatnot. So pro wrestling was a huge, huge influence on me when I was a kid. I read those old black and white wrestling magazines. We got a huge satellite dish, and I started watching pro wrestling from Puerto Rico, Japan, Lucha Libre from Mexico City, before Eddie Guerrero came to, pretty much before he really got famous here in the ECW. I watched him in AAA from Mexico City with Art Barr, and I watched Rey Mysterio before he came to ECW. So I was such a huge fan, or what you would call a smart fan, and, that kind of thing. The first thing I ever looked up on the internet was pro wrestling related. So I was inspired by pro wrestlers to train. And we saw Bill Kazmaier in WCW, and I saw him from the World's Strongest Man competition. Well, 2 Christmases ago, I got to go to Dennis Rogers' ranch, and it came full circle because guess who was there to talk to the kids? It was one of Dennis's best friends, Bill Kazmaier, who was in WCW. So there was no cameras there. It was at Dennis's house in Texas. And Bill Kazmaier, a true strength legend, was sitting on the couch talking to these troubled boys, probably about 15 of them, and, giving them some encouragement, and then giving them a Christian message, straight out of the Bible. So, but a lot of my inspiration came from pro wrestling. Like I looked up to the wrestlers. My dad ran off, but I had my grandpa, and, he was the first one that I saw lever a sledgehammer. So I have a feat where you lever a sledgehammer to your nose, My grandpa did that, and he could pick up 2 cinder blocks by pinching them, So I was encouraged by my grandfather. He chopped a lot of wood and would give away the wood to ladies up and down the street. I grew up in the country, and he would sweat. And I remember him chopping the wood and sweat flying off of him, even when he was an old man. And I thought I wanted to arm wrestle him. I started getting a bicep, like when I was a skinny kid, but because of pro wrestling, I started lifting weights when I was about 12 years old. Well, I wanted to challenge him to an arm wrestling match in a positive, loving way. Well, guess who won? It wasn't me. It was my grandfather, because he worked in a rock quarry, and he would get paid by the amount of rock that he would crush per day. So his tendon, I don't know if you can see it here, but your tendon connects your muscle to your bone, and that's where a lot of your strength really comes from. Muscle is great, but your tendon strength is even more important. And for like ripping cards and whatnot, it's going to be your tendons in your wrist, and it's going to be your thumbs, and it's going to be the ability to pinch and have that grip strength. Anytime you have grip strength, you've got 4 fingers versus 1 thumb. So you better train your thumbs. You got to get your thumb strong for card tearing or ripping phone books and anything that we do. And arm wrestling, they train their thumb all the time. So,
Mm-hmm.
and Dennis started as an arm wrestler. He did some arm wrestling in Virginia, got really good. And Dennis only weighs like 168 pounds. So he shows you that muscle size does not matter. It's not about the size. It's not about the gender, because there's strong women who can bend a horseshoe. It's about your attitude. It's about believing in yourself and taking a few feats of strength and putting them together as part of a show. You use those feats to get their attention, and then you deliver a positive message that may change their life. Now, it might not change their life, but God will put you in the right place, and sometimes he'll put you in the right place at the right time to where one person in that audience needed to hear what you said, and it changed their life. So
Yeah.
that's the power of motivational speaking for me. And I get that from Dennis and Sean Stevenson and Les Brown. Our words are so powerful. We've got to keep our mind strong, and we've got to encourage each other in this life. So,
Yeah, I love it. I mean, you're unpacking a lot of stuff right there. Um, I don't even know where to start and go back, but like, you're talking about all of these things. And, I grew up, my dad was in construction, right? So talk about, a man with strong hands and a strong grip. When you were talking about picking up those 2 cinder blocks with just his fingers, I'm like, yeah, I remember my dad doing that kind of like all the time, and like chopping the wood and swinging a sledgehammer. I mean, that was part of the work he did. I thought my dad was literally the strongest guy in the world,
right.
because I would watch some of the things he did. But you kept coming back to the pro wrestling and how much that affected you and how that impacted you, and who we see and the examples that are set for us kind of helps us to create these stories that we share with other people, and how it impacted you. And here you are sitting and listening to someone speak to you and pour into you, and now you're doing that for other people through your strongman storytelling and through the stories of pro wrestling, and quite honestly through this podcast here. You never know who is listening to this podcast right now, or who will listen to it in years to come, that go, man, I just need to hear that message today. So I'm excited to keep going with this, so let's keep going. After 25 years in law enforcement, what lessons from that career shaped the way you approach your motivational speaking?
Compassion. One word: compassion. So, and when I started, and I would see older officers that were kind of veterans, and sometimes, not all the time, and I'm not knocking them because they're great men, but they had a negative worldview sometimes, or they would be cynical. And it's not just where I worked; it's all over the world, because police officers see the worst. So you can be cynical, but I made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to be cynical. And I'm closer to the end of my career than I am the beginning of my career. I've probably got about 10 more years left in me, and I've enjoyed it, and it's been great. And I love my department that I work at now. I work at Bedford County Sheriff's Department in Shelbyville, Tennessee. And, I also worked for Shelbyville Police Department when I was a young man. And I love them. They are like family. Both of those departments are like family. But I made a promise to myself in the beginning that I did not want to be a cynical officer later in life. Like, I wanted to have compassion for people, because you can really, as a defense mechanism, you can be like, oh, these people are never going to change. Like, this is the same stuff we deal with all the time. Nothing's ever going to get better. We're not really affecting anything. Like, we're just babysitters. But really, being a police officer, any kind of law enforcement officer, it's a calling. It's truly a calling, because our job is to help people. And it's the same thing with motivational speaking. My job is to help people. So, that's my number one goal, is, to encourage people. So that's my main, it's encouragement and compassion. So you have to have compassion for people, and you got to try to encourage them. So that's my main goal for 25 years of law enforcement.
I just recently went on a ride along for the first time in my entire life, actually. And I've had friends in law enforcement for a long, long time. But I'm doing I'm part of the Ventura County Leadership Academy, which in our county it's a program that helps us kind of expand our knowledge of the surrounding communities with where I live, and just learning more about what some of the different agencies offer. Well, I had to do an immersion project, which meant I just needed to immerse myself somewhere in some outside of my normal sphere of influence, and so I chose to do a ride along with the law enforcement in Oxnard, California, which is, I live in Moorpark, California. It's like the third safest city in all of California, and then you go to Oxnard, probably doesn't even make, I don't even know how far off the list it is. But anyway, I chose to go there. My point in saying all of that is that the officer that I rode with, I was expecting a little bit of that cynicism. I really did kind of expect that, because, like, I mean, there's just some stuff that you see on the job every single day, and there's some things that you hear and people that you deal with that could absolutely uh, taint your view on life.
Right.
And I was so surprised. Now, this was a young officer. He was pretty new to the job, young kid. Um, but what I noticed all day long, super polite, super compassionate,
Right.
super, like, I'm here to help. Like, and I was surprised at how he was treated. That was one of the biggest things that I noticed. But despite that, still kept a positive attitude still. And I talked to him and asked him questions, do you love your job? Do you love what you do? And he's like, I couldn't see myself doing anything else. That was his quote. Couldn't see myself doing anything else. And and actually his dad was in law enforcement. His dad told him, don't become a cop. And he's
Wow.
like, and he did, but he said he loves his job and he loves helping people. And everything that you just talked about is
Yeah.
what but I didn't really, I expected the other side a little bit more. And so I was very impressed, especially a young officer. I don't know. I didn't expect that. So that's exactly what you said is what I heard from him. And I hear it from a lot more than I would expect as well.
Right. And guess who's asleep down the hallway? It's actually my 23-year-old son, who is also an officer, and he worked night shift last night. So he actually just went through the academy this year. His name is Mark Fox, and he's asleep right now. But it's the same thing. And Daddy told him, "Don't do it." I said, "Please don't do it." I said, "You're not going to make any money. You're going to have to deal with a lot of stress." And that, but
Yep.
he had his dream of that, and some of it probably was seeing his dad be a cop. So,
100% have to say that he probably saw his dad growing up thinking his
right,
dad was a hero.
right,
It's like you go back to looking at those pro wrestlers when you watch them on
right,
TV. You looked at those guys as heroes, as examples, as role models. You wanted to be, you know, you
right.
wanted to have the muscle and the strength. But little did we know that it was the impact up here that probably impacted you more than anything else, or that changed you the most.
Yeah.
So let's talk about strength and purpose.
Mhm.
You talk about helping people find their inner strength. What does inner strength mean to you personally?
And honestly, it doesn't have to be a very complicated definition. I think it's really just being able to stand up to life, like being able to take the blows that life dishes out, because life is going to hit you in the blind side. It's gonna hit you in the stomach when you're not looking. There's going to be things in life that you're not ready for, and you have to have that resilience to make it through.
Hmm.
So it's inner strength is just resilience to make it through the hard times, because the hard times are coming. There's good times and bad. So a lot of people try to make sense of what happens in life, but good things happen to bad things happen to good people, and every other way. Bad things happen to bad people, and good things happen to good people. All four ways.
Hmm.
It keeps going, and it's like it's unpredictable. We can't predict life, so we have to be strong enough in our brain and in our heart to be able to take the blows of life and to keep moving forward.
Well, you just took some words out of my mouth, because as you explained that, I'm thinking of my favorite monologue in any movie, which was in the Rocky series. You know, he talks about life isn't all about sunshine and rainbows, and it's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit
Yes.
and keep moving forward, like you said. So I love it. Hey, I'm going to take a quick break just to shout out one of our sponsors of the show. So let's put them up here. We got Raptor Extreme Karate. All right, guys, that was Raptor Extreme Karate. If you have any questions, if you're a martial artist and you own a school out there and you'd like some more information about getting this program in your school, let me know. Be happy to help hook you up with Kevin Kowalczyk. My name is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast, and I'm here with Tim Fox with Strongman Storytelling, and we are off to a heck of a start so far. We talked a little bit about your story and your background so far. We've been talking a little bit about strength and purpose, and I just want to pick up where we left off. And many people will think of strength only in physical terms. How do you connect physical feats of strength with mental and spiritual resilience?
And that is a great question. And each story is different. So I'll have, based on your audience, you're going to have different stories for different audience members. Later today, I'm actually doing a show, and it's a small show at a Boys and Girls Club in Ardmore, Alabama. It's on the Tennessee-Alabama line. And I've already been there before, and I'm coming back, and I'm going to bring them a little surprise. But I'm going to use a story, actually just an idea, a concept, a verse out of the Bible. And that is, if we have the faith of the size of a mustard seed, which is tiny, if we just have that little bit of faith, that we can move mountains. And it's not really because of us, it's because of God. So I always say, hey, I'm about to do some amazing things. I'm going to bend horseshoes. I'm going to bend frying pans. I'm going to break chains. I'm going to break a baseball bat. I'm going to rip decks of cards. I'm going to lift you above my head. I'm going to carry people. I'm going to take blows to the stomach. So, we're going to have all this fun. And what I do is really cool. But nothing I do can compare to how awesome God is. Nothing that I do today. I'm just a man. I'm flesh and blood. Guess what? This old body is ashes to ashes and dust to dust. And someday this old body is going in the ground. And I'll tell this to the kids later. My grandfather had a terrible joke, and it made me laugh, but I got tired of it, but then it made me laugh again. Every time we went by the cemetery, he would say, he'd point to the cemetery, and he'd say, people just dying to get in there. And it's so true. It's like, like Les Brown says, people are leaving this life that have never left before. Nobody's figured out how to get out of here alive. So we have to think about that, which is morbid to think about. But I'm 46. My grandpa lived to be 92. I'll be lucky if I can live to be 92. But I want to reach as many people as I can. And I don't have any delusions of grandeur. I don't want to be famous. I want to do as many shows as possible. And I want to reach people just like you do through this podcast. But I'm perfectly happy. I don't want to be rich. I'm perfectly happy doing a bunch of small shows and giving all the glory to God and getting out there and beating the street. And I've done shows in the projects where people would not go. And I did not bring my gun. I'm a cop, but I didn't bring my gun. I went there unarmed, and I did my Strongman show unarmed with gang members around, the youth center. And I'm not scared because, I've got my real daddy up in heaven who's watching over me. I just want to reach more people and just encourage people. And I love a small show just as much as I love a big show. I've performed big shows and there were millionaires in the room, but it means more to me to perform for a bunch of kids or at a church, at a boys and girls club, that kind of thing, and just encourage somebody, or somebody come up to me after the show and tell me what happened, and it encouraged them. But every message is going to be different based on that audience. So you think about what the audience is going to be. It's like a recon mission. You find out who the audience is, and then you think about what do they need? Don't take Tim out of it. It doesn't matter what Tim wants to talk about. What do they want to talk about? What do they need to hear? So I talk to the event coordinator, and I'll ask that. I'll say, what do they need to hear? And I've specialized on inner strength and whatnot, but hey, they might need to hear something else. I speak on suicide prevention, and my mom had mental illness, and she actually attempted suicide when I was about 13 years old. And my grandfather woke me up in the middle of the night. He called me Timbo, and it was dark, and it was storming outside. And he said, Timbo, he said, your mama's taking a bunch of pills, and we got to go get her stomach pumped. And I didn't know what stomach pumped meant. I was trying to wake up in the dark, and I was like, what is he talking about? Stomach pumped. I don't know what that means. And I went in, and my mom was laying there in the middle of the floor, and she had taken a whole bottle of pills, and she was attempting to commit suicide. And it was thunderstorming. He said, I can't pick her up because he was older. So I had to scoop her up, put her in the car, took her to the hospital, got her stomach pumped. And she said later, and part of her mental illness was that she would hear voices, and she heard a voice that told her that nobody loved her, and she just needed to go ahead and take that entire bottle of pills. And
Wow.
luckily, the devil did not win. So she lived through that. But I saw that, and there's part of that made me want to be a police officer too, and I've always, I speak on suicide prevention. I speak on anti-bullying. I have different stories for different things. I speak on recovery, even though I've never had a problem with drugs or alcohol. I am drawn to that because it is all about overcoming. I want to help people who have struggled with drugs and alcohol, and I've done a lot of Celebrate Recovery groups. And it would be a small group or a picnic. And those little picnics where I'm talking to people that, are overcoming addiction. I don't even like the word addict. I say overcomers, they're overcoming addiction, and they can overcome it. A lot of people say, oh, they'll never overcome it. It'll always be there. You've got to keep your mind right in this life. They're overcomers. And my show is about overcoming. And that was straight from Dennis Rogers. He said, if you can make your show about overcoming, you're on the right track.
Yeah. Well, when you were talking about performing for a small show, performing in front of a big show, and everything in between, it really made me feel, I could feel your passion for what you do and for the message that you have to relay. And hearing that story about your mom, I mean, that had to have a serious impact on you as well. And so you're taking all of these experiences and all of these things that have impacted you, and now you're helping impact others. And I love that, talking about overcoming, because in martial arts, it's something that we work on all the time. I mean, we have our fears, we have our insecurities, we have our challenges, we have our struggles, and like at the end of the day, we're learning how to fight through and how to overcome all of those things. So it's just such a really powerful message. But whether you got 5 people watching you, I remember, we would do shows sometimes, and you'd have 5 people in the room, and you'd have 100 people. But like for us, it didn't matter. Like we knew that we were telling a story, and if it just got through to one person, made one person feel good about being there, because sometimes people come to watch a pro wrestling show because they just literally want to get away from life, right? Forget about all their problems, their job, their, all those things, and just kind of enjoy it. It's like, I like to watch a movie, if I'm feeling really stressed or whatever, a lot going on. It's like, I could sit down watch a movie, and for 2 hours, I can let go of everything around me for a minute and just enjoy that. And so
Right.
you don't know how that impacts those people that are listening or watching or participating. And it's really cool that you go. It's funny. I had an interview right before you for our Chamber of Commerce. I was talking with someone about the Boys and Girls Club and what the Boys and Girls Club offers and what a great program it is. And so you're going there and speaking and
Right.
doing your thing there. So let's talk about what's one of the most powerful reactions you've seen from students during your anti-bullying assemblies.
Oh, I mean, I've seen tears, so that's the most powerful reaction. And that you almost saw that when me talking about my mother attempted suicide, but I've seen tears during that story because I talk about, I hate to give him any credit. I really do, but I talk about the old devil, and my grandpa called him the old devil, and he always called him the old devil. And I said, why do you call him the old devil? You never just call him the devil or Satan. And he said, because he's been around a long time and he knows how to hurt you. And he hurts you right here in your heart. And the reason is because he doesn't want you to believe in God. And to me, that is such a powerful concept right there. The devil is always trying to get us down. So it's when I talk about that, you will see the tears when I talk about my mother. I talk about what my mom went through. And it's a great ending to the story because she overcame that, and luckily God was with her and she did not pass away then. Now, she passed away at the age of 80 of natural causes, but she wasn't afraid to die. Her and my grandparents, I was raised by my grandparents and my mother, and they all three said, don't cry when we die, and don't be coming around at the funeral being sad. We want to have when the Saints Go Marching In played at the funeral, and we want it to be a celebration because we're going to go be with Jesus. So I had three people that were so brave that were not afraid to die because of Jesus Christ. So
Wow, the emotions coming out right now for sure. I can feel it. I can see it. That's so
absolutely,
awesome.
absolutely.
And
I did not expect that, but you can't speak from the heart without having that a little bit.
well, and I think it's so cool, so awesome that you're sharing that with you're sharing it here on the podcast. You're sharing it with
Right.
kids at the school. You're sharing it with the different groups that you go and speak with, and just it's a very powerful message. So keep preaching it. In your church programs, you focus on the strength of God. Can you share a story where faith and strength came together in a powerful way? I know we've talked about this a little bit
Right.
already. I mean, in a really
Right.
powerful way. But is there something else that you can add to that?
Right. I just did a show in Tullahoma, Tennessee at Grace Baptist Church. I did that last week. And you can change your story. So a lot of people, they get stuck on a keynote and they're like, I'm going to have a keynote message and I'm going to script it and I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to do that same keynote over and over and over. And that's a perfectly okay. I think everybody should have a keynote. However, I like different messages. I like to have a different message, and it can be a very simple concept. And my concept last Sunday was God isn't finished with you yet. And I like to have them say that with me. I like them to repeat it. I'll say God and have them repeat it. Is not finished with me yet. You speak it, to them, they speak it back to you, and it connects you as an audience. That's where I met Jeremy Jackson, through Sean Stevenson. Sean's big things. He had these Legos. He had a giant Lego, and then he had two other Legos. And it was personal stories. Personal stories was the big Lego. Like if there's three Legos and there's a giant one on the bottom and there's two, it's personal stories is the big Lego. You suck people in through personal stories. Personal stories is what connects people. They don't want to hear about all the facts. They don't want to hear about all the statistics, because the statistics, they say 70% of statistics are made up, and that's a joke. But nobody cares about the facts and the statistics. But that little Lego is going to be the facts and the points. The big Lego is personal stories. And the little Lego is activities. And that activity is, I say this, you say that, call and response. I say Tim, you say Fox. I say strong, you say man. I say God isn't finished with you yet. Now I want you to say God's not finished with me yet. and you suck people in with those activities, and it unifies the audience. Sean had everybody, he said, I want you to snap it out. I want you to raise your hand and just everybody snap. And the whole audience was snapping, and I was like, what is going on? I'm getting chill bumps. And it is an activity. It can just say, hey, raise your hand if you've been bullied. Well, everybody in that place raises their hand, including me, because we're human beings and we all get bullied at some time in our life. But when a crowd raises their hand together or snaps together or speaks together or gets, Tony Robbins is the expert.
Yep.
Get up and dance. He does it. He does that. And Sean was big into dance parties. And Sean, he had osteogenesis imperfecta. He was a little guy in a wheelchair, and his bones broke really easily, almost like Mr. Glass in the movie, Unbreakable. So he was literally like that. But he became such a great speaker. He brought his mind to another level and learned the techniques of speaking to an audience, which is those activities, those personal stories. The facts are okay, but people want to hear your story. They want to do some activities with you. They want to feel like this is part of it. And the old time strongman feats are even better because I do like tug of war with the audience. I will bend a horseshoe into the shape of an S, and I'll say, whose name begins with an S? Oh, your name is Sean. Well, this S is for Sean, and I'm going to give Sean a souvenir. So you give that S to Sean, and that's his name. It sucks him in. You roll up a frying pan and you give that to somebody, and you say, hey, that's a hot dog cooker. You cook some hot dogs on that, brother. You do that enough times, the people are on your side. It's something in pro wrestling called getting over. You're getting yourself over. You get yourself over with the audience, and then they actually want to listen to you. And then you hit them with some gold. You hit them with some positivity. You hit them with some encouragement and a life-changing message. And it can be a very tiny message like the one I'm doing today at the Boys and Girls Club, is if we have the faith the size of a mustard seed, we can move mountains because of God.
Yeah, that's great. These are awesome. It's awesome information for anybody watching, whether you're a martial arts instructor, you're a speaker, an author. The whole thing is stories. Like you said, stories are what draw people in.
Right.
And I believe that that's one of the things that I love so much about this podcast, is that I get to allow the guests to tell their personal stories,
Right.
to bring everybody in to share the message, so that each person watching has something to take away.
Right.
And even as parents, we tell stories to kind of grab the attention of our kids, to draw them in, to relay a message, right? So it's just since the beginning of time, storytelling has always been a part of what we do as humans. You mentioned this a little bit. How do you tailor your message differently when speaking to kids in schools versus adults in churches or other settings? And you talked about, having a keynote, but being able to kind of tailor make your presentation to the different audiences. And listen, let's face it, every group of kids isn't the same. Every group of adults isn't the same. And so you try to appeal to them in a different way. You talked about participation, which I think is huge, right? Getting them to, whether they're snapping or whether they're raising their hand, or even sometimes just, the eye contact. I've had some speakers where I felt some pretty intense eye contact, like as if they were speaking directly to me. And I was just drawn in. Some speakers have that power. So how do you tailor your message differently to kids and adults?
Well, kids, of course, have a shorter attention span. We all know that. And I even think they have an even shorter one than they used to because of their tablets. They're on YouTube short videos, and they only got a little bit, like TikTok. I got lucky during the pandemic, and I was able to get 300,000 followers on TikTok. So I have 300,000 followers on TikTok at Strongman Storytelling. So, but when they scroll those TikToks, when they're scrolling, if it doesn't catch them in the first split second, they will scroll to the next one, and they'll scroll to the next one. And all that does is train us to have a shorter and shorter attention span. You have to get people at the beginning of that video. And the way that I got my followers is I was doing giveaways. So I'd bend a horseshoe or a nail or something, or a big steel bar, and I would hold it up. And immediately when my video started, I would say, hey, TikTok, I'm doing a giveaway. I'm about to bend this horseshoe, and I'm going to mail it to one of you guys. And then that sentence, I had to say it so fast. I would do it outside in the sunshine because the sunshine is better and brighter. And I would wear a bright clothes. I would wear like red, orange, or yellow. And just the sun and the brightness and me saying, hey, TikTok, I'm doing a giveaway. I want to give this to you. Like now I just sucked them in. I had to say you, because what's in it for me? That's what
Yep.
people hear. It's like,
Yep.
what's in it for me? If they don't see it or it's dark, if the video's dark, scroll. So I'm in the sunshine with bright colors. I'm talking, I'm saying what I'm going to do for you. I'm doing this for you, And ultimately, motivational speaking, it's not about me. It's about the audience. It's totally about the audience. It's not about me. I'm the first to say, hey, like I said at the beginning of this interview, this old body's going in the ground, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We're only here for a vapor. Life is very short, but hopefully I can make an impact.
That's amazing. That's great. Hey, I'm going to take another minute real quick just to shout out another one of our supporters of the show. This is Connected Leaders Academy.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world globally, all across the country, high performers, titans of industry. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, this is where you want to be. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. We are scaling massively. We want to welcome you in. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
All right, guys, we're back again. That was Connected Leaders Academy. If you'd like to learn more about this program, again, let me know, and I would love to help connect you with Jose Escobar. My name is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast. I'm talking with Tim Fox, Strongman Storytelling. We have talked about his personal story and background, talked about strength and purpose, talked about speaking and the impact of that, challenges and growth. We're going to move on here in just a second, but I want to remind everybody, this is a live conversation now. And if you're watching, I see that there's a few viewers out there. If you have any questions for Tim or any comments, you just want to say hi, please go ahead and comment below. And also do us a favor and share the video. Go to Master Motivation Podcast on YouTube and subscribe. So Tim, let's talk about bullies, because this is something that, as a martial artist, I'm constantly talking about with our kids. But have you ever faced a personal bully or a major obstacle in your own life, and how did you overcome it?
Oh, yes. Through my job, ultimately, not all criminals, but most criminals are bullies by nature. It's like stealing something that's not theirs, assaulting somebody, physically assaulting somebody, killing somebody, of course, all of that is part of being a bully. And a lot of the true criminals have a mental disorder. Like they had, like if you look in the DSM-5, they have some things going on upstairs. It's no excuse, but it causes them. It doesn't totally cause it, but it's a contributing factor as to where they think they're better than somebody. They look at people as victims, and they look at what they can get from somebody. So, they like to push people around, they like to hurt people, so it's basically that's what being a bully is. And, most of the time they've been bullied themselves and they're copying that behavior.
Mm-hmm. And so, like you said, on the job, you faced bullies and criminals, but in your own personal life as a kid growing up, do you have a bully story
Man, I do.
that impacted you?
Yeah, I do. And it really wasn't that big of a deal, but it is it's not funny, but it can be a comical story that I tell kids and whatnot. But so I was lucky. I grew up at a very good school, Cascade School in War Trace. I went there K through 12, and it was really like family. Like K through 12 in the same building, and really we didn't really have any bullies. I'll be honest with you, and most people don't believe that. People look back at the past with rose-colored glasses, but we really treated each other good. And there'd be some fights, but after the fight, like, people would shake hands. I mean, I even fought one of my good friends like in 8th grade, and then we just made up. It's like we're not mad at each other, but I have a story that my mother, and I'm a mama's boy. Because my dad ran off, so I was a mama's boy. She was trying to do everything by herself. And I have a story where she took me to, it goes back to pro wrestling. Now, this is funny. She took me to a radio get together at a lake, at Normandy Lake. And I was a little boy, and I had this Sergeant Slaughter action figure. So the action figure was G.I. Joe, but Sergeant Slaughter was a wrestler, and you had to cut out proof of purchase off the back of 5 G.I. Joes, and you mailed it, and then they mailed you Sergeant Slaughter. So I had Sergeant Slaughter, and they want these 2 guys that were way bigger than me. They were probably 14, and I was probably like 10. They came up to me, and one had a rat tail. You remember when everybody had a rat tail, So you knew they were up to no good, One had an earring, which, hey, do what you want to. It's all any kind of earring, rat tail, any kind of long hair, or any tattoo. It's all impression management usually. It's social psychology, impression management. You're trying to make some kind of impression with your tattoo or your earring or whatever. So they came up to me and they said, "Hey, we want to take your G.I. Joe, Sergeant Slaughter. We want to put him in a birthday hat. It's upside down, and we're going to tie these balloons to it, and we got a string we're going to tie to it, and we're going to fly it up by that tree right there." Now, Jason, does that sound like you should trust those guys? No. And it was 2 of them and 1 of me. So there was 2 of them and 1 of me, and they looked like bullies, and they were bullies. So I had never really been bullied, but I just felt like they were trying to trick me. I felt like they were trying to manipulate me. I felt like, they're not going to fly that beside that tree. They're either going to let go of it, and then it's going to go forever, or they're going to get it stuck in the tree on purpose, or they're just going to take it. And I know my mom would be upset because she mailed off the proof of purchase. Like, it was a big deal to get this G.I. Joe Sergeant Slaughter action figure. So I told him no. And I never really told anybody no when I was a kid like that. And I didn't know the guys. And they said, "So you're not going to do it?" And I said, "No." And there was 2 of them and 1 of me. And it seemed like I started getting smaller and smaller when I backed away from them. And it seemed like they were getting bigger and bigger. And I thought, they're going to beat me up. I'd never really been beat up before. But they did something worse than beating me up. And we laugh at your mama jokes now. Everybody always loves your mama jokes. But I had never had anybody talk about my mom, man. And my dad ran off, so I was really partial to my mom because she was like my mom and my dad. So they saw me hug my mom earlier. So they said, "Hey, we saw you hugging your mom earlier, and we know you're a little mama's boy. And we just want you to know one thing: your mom's fat and your mom's ugly." Now, those are two simple little disses right there. Your mom's fat and your mom's ugly. Well, I'll ask the kids, "What do you think I did? What do you think I did?" And they'll be like, "You punched him, you kicked him, you did this, or no, you ran away, or you did whatever." I say, "No, I cried because I wasn't prepared." And dude, I cried because they talked about my mom. They called my mom ugly, and they called my mom fat, and I wasn't. And my mom was not fat, and she was not ugly. I thought she was one of the most beautiful women in the world, And it's like she was not fat at all. So the things they were saying were not true, and they still hurt my feelings so bad. And that is bullying by nature. So I use that, and that's my main story. Is, hey, I'm a strongman. Hey, I'm a cop, and I still got bullied when I was a kid. So nobody's. It can happen to anybody.
Right.
So that is a personal bullying story that I use, whatnot. And, I suck the kids in because I tell it slow. And when I say my mom is fat and ugly, dude, but like they will be like, "Oh my God." Like, it is the worst thing they've ever heard, because they heard that my dad ran away. They heard that he was an alcoholic, that my mom was doing everything by herself with my grandparents. And my mom had taken the time to do the proof of purchase to get this special toy. So, it does connect with kids. I think that story does connect with kids because everybody loves their mom, and nobody's going to love you like your mama. And my mom is in heaven, so she's gone. And I'm here to tell you, she's gone, but she gave me enough love to last a lifetime.
You know, I have to say, I'm listening to the story, and when you asked the kids, if you would have asked me, what did you do that? I would have said you punched them right in the nose too.
Right.
Just so you know.
Right.
But the
Dude,
message was deeper.
Dude, I cried, man. It hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good message. Good message. Being a strongman comes with expectations. Do people ever assume life is easy for you because of your physical strength?
Right. Right. Absolutely. And I try to be positive. Like, I'm positive like 99% of the time. Like I am what you would call delusionally positive. Like I'm positive in the face of negativity. And you got to be that way in this life, but every now and then I will get down because I'm a human being and we all get down sometimes. But it's like, it's such a, not a crash, but just people, if they ever, and I'm never down in front of anybody unless they really know me. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I'd never hardly get down. So when they do, they're like, oh my God, this is not you. Like, what is going on? We got to fix this. Like, you don't have a right to be down. Like, I don't have a right to be down because I'm always encouraging other people and I'm always showing strength. And there's times where we are weak, with what happened to my mom. The old devil coming after you. And the more that I talk about glorifying God through my strongman shows, the devil's been messing with me lately. You know what I'm saying? So it's like he's always trying to discourage you and put a little, just doubt in your head. And he wants you not to believe in yourself. He wants you not to believe in God. He doesn't want your dreams to come true, especially if they glorify God. So, like I said, I hate to give him any credit, man. And sometimes when you start talking about the old devil, people are like, oh, well, that's not real. That sounds mentally ill to even blame it on somebody that's not here, but trust me, he wants death and destruction. And we cannot really take our eyes off that because he wants to ruin your life. And he'll do anything, especially when you're trying to give glory to God. He does not want that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love it. This has been such an amazing conversation, and I've learned so much. I mean, I feel like I'm going to have a more positive day just by listening to you.
Awesome.
And so I think that this is a great opportunity for other people to listen and kind of draw that positivity from you as well. But I want to ask this last question, and this is a big one, and I know that you have the answer for it. If there's one message you'd want every listener to take away from your story and your work, what would it be?
It really is the greatest commandment in the Bible, and that's love one another. Love one another. That's if you put me on the hot seat and said, man, there's only one thing you can share with the world, and that's it. It's only one message. Only one message. Love one another. That fixes just about everything. And it's the greatest commandment of the Bible. And the Bible says over and over, I think it says over 200 times. I read that it was 365 times, which is the days of the year, but it's not true. Like, I researched a little bit, but it is well over 200 times. The Bible says, do not fear, do not fear, do not fear, fear not, fear not, fear not, do not fear. The Bible tells you over and over not to have fear, but it is human nature to have fear. And we have got to block that out. We've got to erase the fear. We've got to shake off the doubt. We got to shake it off. Fear does nothing for us. It's all in our mind. It's how we experience things. It's not even real most of the time. Like it's not, like fear is not even real.
Mm-hmm.
It is our expectations in our mind. And hey, I love that old book, and I forget the name. I forget the author, but feel the fear and do it anyway. It's like go ahead and feel the fear and do it anyway. It's like, if fear is not going to stop you. But my greatest lesson would be love one another. That's it. We got to take care of our family, and we got to try to take care of others. Some people, you can't love them. They're not going to let you. They're going through stuff, and they're just not going to let you love them. But if that's my one message, it would be love one another.
Beautiful. I love it. It's been an honor just to listen to you tell your story today and spread this message. I think that's a great way to end too, because social media, as you mentioned earlier, talking about the depression and how social media can be sometimes can be such a kind of bring it down.
Right.
But if you apply the message that you're just talking about, right? But it's hard, it's just so hard because, like you said, you got.
And when we're depressed, we're thinking about ourself. We're thinking about self, 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 self. That's when we're depressed. When you think about giving to other people, that's when you get out of the funk of depression. You know, you got to start thinking about other people, and love one another is that. And I do want to add this also. I do have a website, www.strongmanstorytelling.com. So everybody visit that website. Follow me on Instagram at Strongman Storytelling and TikTok at Strongman Storytelling. And go ahead and friend me on Facebook. It'll say Bedford County Sheriff's Office on there, Tim Fox. Go ahead and friend me, follow me, and visit my website. But yes, most depression is when we are focused on ourselves. And when we stop being selfish and we start thinking about other people, that's when we will get out of that depression. And it's easier said than done. And some people say, oh, no, it's a chemical imbalance. Yes, because my mother had a chemical imbalance where she heard voices that weren't there. She struggled with mental illness, but she was still a great woman, and she was the best mother that I could ever dream of, you know. So she was who God picked me, you know, to be her son, and God picked her to be my mother. So, you know, but when we're depressed, we're really focused on our own problems. When we start focusing on solving other people's problems, we get out of depression.
Good stuff. Really good stuff. Tim, thanks for being on, and thanks for sharing where people can find you. One more time, Strongman Storytelling.
Yep, strongmanstorytelling.com.
Yep, and then Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I know that I've been following. I watched a couple of your videos. I did like how you had like 3 kids you were carrying on your arms.
Right.
I love it. It's good stuff. But the message was strong today, and I hope that everybody will share this video with someone that may just need to hear it. And keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome. I'll be sending you, you know, a little bit more information, and I'll be sharing this video and a little bit more about it over the next week or so. So hopefully you'll be able to share it as well, and we'll keep getting that message out.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Have a great day. And I want to thank everybody for watching the Master Motivation podcast today. I'll be back again this week on Thursday with another guest, and every Thursday. So just keep tuning in and subscribe to Master Motivation podcast on YouTube. Thank you so much, Tim. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.